Okay. Instead of I'll finish this tomorrow. This I'm going to start. This is Short Stories for Hogwarts of Heroes, Hardships, and Dangerous Hobbies by J.K. Rowling. This is all 3 books. This one, and then this one. From what I heard, this one is the one that details how to become an animagus. From what I've heard. But that's the 3rd one. So we got to wait. Okay, contents. From the Pottermore editor. The Wizarding World can be a dark and dangerous place. There are spells that can kill in 6 syllables, potions that can rob someone of their free will, and magical beasts that can tear even the bravest wizard limb from limb. Also makes valiant acts of heroism more powerful and more necessary. Having a wand in hand can install courage, but magic isn't the only thing you need in the Wizarding World to make brave choices. In this collection of writing by J.K. Rowling, you will read about the love, grief, and enduring dignity of Minerva McGonagall, the tragic fate of Remus Lupin, the reckless behavior of one Sylvanus Kettleburn, and so much more. Chapter 1, Minerva McGonagall. We get to find out some stuff about her. Yay! Minerva McGonagall is many things. Gifted witch, stern Hogwarts professor, lifelong Quidditch enthusiast, and occasional tabby cat. If there's one thing she's not, it's an open book. There's really no better way to get to know someone than hearing about their parents, their childhood, their first love, and their stubbornly held grudges. So it's with great joy we follow J.K. Rowling's writing back to the Scottish Highlands, where we can glimpse McGonagall's life as she found joy, friendship, magic, and a job at Hogwarts. Minerva McGonagall by J.K. Rowling. Birth date, October 4th. Wand, fur and dragon heartstring 9.5 inches stiff. Hogwarts house, Gryffindor. Special abilities, animagus, distinctly marked silver tabby cat. Parentage, muggle father, witch mother. So she's a half-blood. Okay. Family, husband, Elphinstone Urquhart. Deceased, no children. Okay, so she doesn't have any kids. Okay. Hobbies, needlework, correcting articles and transfiguration today, watching Quidditch, supporting the Montrose Magpies. Childhood. Minerva McGonagall was the first child and only daughter of a Scottish Presbyterian minister and a Hogwarts-educated witch. Ooh, that's gonna be awkward. A minister and a witch. Oh my God! You tell your husband, hey, magic exists, and I'm a witch. So with your daughter. That must have been an awkward conversation. She grew up in the Highlands of Scotland in the early 20th century and only gradually became aware that there was something strange, both about her own abilities and her parents' marriage. Minerva's father, the Reverend Robert McGonagall, had become captivated by the high-spirited Isabel Ross, who lived in the same village. Like his neighbors, Robert believed that Isabel attended a select ladies' boarding school in England. In fact, when Isabel vanished from her home for months at a time, it was to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry that she went. Haha. Aware that her parents, a witch and a wizard, would frown on a connection with a serious young muggle, Isabel kept their burgeoning relationship a secret. By the time she was 18, she had fallen in love with Robert. Unfortunately, she had not found the courage to tell him what she was. The couple eloped, to the fury of both sets of parents. Now estranged from her family, Isabel could not bring herself to mar the bliss of the honeymoon by telling her smitten new husband that she had graduated top of her class in charms at Hogwarts, nor that she had been captain of the school Quidditch team. Isabel and Robert moved into a manse minister's home on the outskirts of Caithness, where the beautiful Isabel proved surprisingly adept at making the most of the minister's tiny salary. The birth of the young couple's first child, Minerva, proved both a joy and a crisis. Missing her family and the magical community she had given up for love, Isabel insisted on naming her newborn daughter after her own grandmother, an immensely talented witch. The outlandish name raised eyebrows in the community in which she lived, and the Reverend Robert McGonagall found it difficult to explain his wife's choice to his parishioners. Why not just... all you have to do is just tell them that she named her after her grandmother, so you don't have any... Hello? It's not that big a deal. How is that any kind of hard to explain? All you have to do is just say that you just don't talk to them anymore. Furthermore, he was alarmed by his wife's moodiness. Friends assured him that women were often emotional after the birth of a baby, and that Isabel would soon be herself again. Isabel, however, became more and more withdrawn, often secluding herself with Minerva for days at a time. Isabel later told her daughter that she had displayed small but unmistakable signs of magic from her earliest hours. Wow. Talk about a prodigy. Toys that had been left on upper shelves were found in her cot. The family cat appeared to do her bidding before she could talk. Her father's bagpipes were occasionally heard to play themselves from distant rooms, a phenomenon that made the infant Minerva chuckle. Isobel was torn between pride and fear. She knew that she must confess the truth to Robert before he witnessed something that would alarm him. At last, in response to Robert's patient questioning, Isobel burst into tears, retrieved her wand from the locked box under her bed, and showed him what she was. Although Minerva was too young to remember that night, its aftermath left her with a bitter understanding of the complications of growing up with magic in a Muggle world. Although Robert McGonagall loved his wife no less upon discovering that she was a witch, he was profoundly shocked by her revelation and by the fact that she had kept such a secret from him for so long. Can you not blame her, though? Considering that he's a man of faith, don't you think this would, cause a witch hunt literally to happen? What was more, he who prided himself on being an upright and honest man was now drawn into a life of secrecy that was quite foreign to his nature. Isobel explained through her sobs that she and their daughter were bound by the international statute of secrecy and that they must conceal the truth about themselves or face the fury of the Ministry of Magic. Robert also quailed at the thought of how the locals, in the main an austere, straight-laced, and conventional breed, would feel about having a witch as their minister's wife. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Love endured, but trust had been broken between her parents, and Minerva, a clever and observant child, saw this with sadness. 2 more children, both sons, were born to the McGonagalls, and both in due course revealed magical ability. Minerva helped her mother explain to Malcolm and Robert Jr. that they must not flaunt their magic, and aided her mother in concealing from their father the accidents and embarrassments their magic sometimes caused. Minerva was very close to her Muggle father, whom in temperament she resembled more than her mother. She saw with pain how much he struggled with the family's strange situation. She sensed too how much of a strain it was for her mother to fit in with all Muggle village, and how much she missed the freedom of being with her kind, and of exercising her considerable talents. Minerva never forgot how much her mother cried when the letter of admittance into Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry arrived on Minerva's 11th birthday. She knew that Isobel was sobbing not only out of pride, but also out of envy. School career. As is often the case when the young witch or wizard comes from a family who has struggled with its magical identity, Hogwarts was for Minerva McGonagall a place of joyful release and freedom. Minerva drew unusual attention to herself on her very first evening when she was revealed to be a Hadstall. After 5.5 minutes, the Sorting Hat, which had been facilitating between the houses of Ravenclaw and Gryffindor, placed Minerva in the latter. In later years, these circumstances was a subject of gentle humor between Minerva and her colleague Phileas Flitwick, over whom the Sorting Hat suffered the same confusion, but reached the opposite conclusion. The 2 heads of houses were amused to think that they might, but for these crucial moments in their youth, have exchanged positions. Minerva was quickly recognized as the most outstanding student of her year, with a particular talent for transfiguration. As she progressed through the school, she demonstrated that she had inherited both her mother's talents and her father's cast-iron moral sense. Minerva's school career overlapped by 2 years with that of Pomona Sprout, later head of Hufflepuff House, and the 2 women enjoyed an excellent relationship both then and in later years. By the end of her education at Hogwarts, McGonagall had achieved an impressive record, top grades in Owls and Newts. Prefect, head girl, and winner of the Transfiguration Today Most Promising Newcomer Award. Under the guidance of her inspirational Transfiguration teacher, Albus Dumbledore, she had managed to become an animagus. In her animal form with its distinctive markings, tabby cat, square spectacles marking around the eyes, were duly logged into the Ministry of Magic's Animagus registry. Minerva was also, like her mother, a gifted Quidditch player, although a nasty fall in her final year, a foul during the Gryffindor vs. Slytherin game, which would decide the cup winner, left her with a concussion, several bruised broken ribs, and a lifelong desire to see Slytherin crushed on the Quidditch pitch. Though she gave up Quidditch on leaving Hogwarts, the innately competitive Professor McGonagall later took a keen interest in the fortunes of her house team and retained a keen eye for Quidditch talent. That explains it. Early heartbreak. Oh, this is going to be fun. Upon graduation from Hogwarts, Minerva returned to the manse to enjoy one last summer with her family before settling out for London, where she had been offered a position at the Ministry of Magic, Department of Magical Law Enforcement. These months were to prove some of the most difficult of Minerva's life, for it was then, aged only 18, that she proved herself truly her mother's daughter by falling head over heels in love with a Muggle boy. It was the first and only time in Minerva McGonagall's life that she might have been said to lose her head. Dougal McGregor was the handsome, clever, and funny son of a local farmer. Though less beautiful than Isabel, Minerva was clever and witty. Dougal and Minerva shared a sense of humor, argued fiercely, and suspected mysterious deaths in each other. Before either of them knew it, Dougal was on one knee in a plowed field proposing, and Minerva was accepting him. She went home intending to tell her parents of her engagement, yet found herself unable to do so. All that night she lay awake, thinking about her future. Dougal did not know what she, Minerva, truly was, any more than her father had known the truth about Isabel before they had been married. Minerva had witnessed at close quarters the kind of marriage she might have if she wed Dougal. It would be the end of all her ambitions. It would mean a wand locked away and children taught to lie. Perhaps even to their own father. She did not fool herself that Dougal McGregor would accompany her to London while she went to work every day at the ministry. He was looking forward to inheriting his father's farm. Early next morning, Minerva slipped from her parents' house and went to tell Dougal that she had changed her mind and could not marry him. Mindful of the fact that if she broke the international statute of secrecy, she would lose the job at the ministry for which she was giving him up. She could give him no good reason for her change of heart. She left him devastated and set out for London 3 days later. Oh, that sucks. Ministry career. Though undoubtedly her feelings for the Ministry of Magic were colored by the fact that she had recently suffered an emotional crisis, Minerva McGonagall did not much enjoy her new home and workplace. Some of her co-workers had an ingrained anti-Muggle bias that, given her adoration of her Muggle father and her continuing love for Dougal McGregor, she deplored. Though a most efficient and gifted employee, and fond of her much older boss, Elphinstone Urquhart, Minerva was unhappy in London and found that she had missed Scotland. Finally, after 2 years at the ministry, she was offered a prestigious promotion, yet found herself turning it down. She sent an owl to Hogwarts, asking whether she might be considered for a teaching position. The owl returned within hours, offering her a job in the Transfiguration Department under head of department Albus Dumbledore. Friendship with Albus Dumbledore. The school greeted Minerva McGonagall's return with delight. Minerva threw herself into her work, proving herself a strict but inspirational teacher. If she kept letters from Dougal McGregor locked in a box under her bed, this was, she told herself firmly, better than keeping her wand locked there. Nevertheless, it was a shock to learn from the oblivious Isabel in the middle of a chatty letter of local news that Dougal had married the daughter of another farmer. Aw, poor thing. Albus Dumbledore discovered Minerva in tears in her classroom later that evening as she confessed the whole story to him. Albus Dumbledore offered both comfort and wisdom and told Minerva some of his own family history previously unknown to her. The confidences exchanged that night between two instantly private and reserved characters were to form the basis of a lasting mutual esteem and friendship. Minerva McGonagall was one of only a handful of people who knew or suspected how dreadful a moment it was for Albus Dumbledore when, in 1943, he made the decision to confront and defeat the dark wizard Gellert Grindelwald. Voldemort's first rise. Minerva McGonagall did not teach the young Tom Riddle, but she was privy to Dumbledore's fears and suspicions about him. Minerva was not inducted into the Order of the Phoenix during Voldemort's first climb to power. At that time, the Order of the Phoenix was seen as a renegade outfit by the Ministry. Successive ministers feared Dumbledore's charisma and magical talent, and were inclined to harbor fears that he wished to succeed them. Minerva's abilities as an animagus were to prove useful in these dark periods of wizarding history, however, and unbeknownst to her students, she spent many nights spying for the Ministry in the guise of a tabby cat, bringing the Order's crucial information on the activities of Voldemort's followers. Like most of the magical community, she suffered personal bereavements during the first period of Voldemort's power. Among the worst were the loss of her brother Robert, two of her favorite students, Lily Evans and James Potter, and Dougal McGregor, who was murdered along with his wife and children in a random anti-Muggle act by the Death Eaters. This last news was a terrible blow to Minerva, who asked herself whether she might not have been able to save Dougal's life had she married him. Maybe. You probably would have. Marriage. Through all her early years at Hogwarts, Minerva McGonagall remained on terms of friendship with her old boss at the Ministry, Elphinstone Urquhart. He came to visit her while on holiday in Scotland, and to her great surprise and embarrassment, proposed marriage in Madame Puddifoot's tea shop. Still in love with Dougal McGregor, Minerva turned him down. You can't believe... you have to grieve, but still. Elphinstone, however, had never ceased to love her, nor to propose every now and then, even though she continued to refuse him. Or never ceased to leave her. Never ceased to love her, so he never stopped loving her. The death of Dougal McGregor, however, although traumatic, seemed to free Minerva. Shortly after Voldemort's first defeat, Elphinstone, now white-haired, proposed again during a summertime stroll around the lake in the Hogwarts grounds. This time Minerva accepted. Elphinstone, now retired, was beside himself with joy and purchased a small cottage in Hogsmeade for the pair of them, whence Minerva could travel easily to work every day. Known to successive generations of students as Professor McGonagall, Minerva, always something of a feminist, announced that she would be keeping her own name upon marriage. Traditionalists sniffed. Why was Minerva refusing to accept a pure-blood name and keep that of her Muggle father? Because that's how she is. Shut up. The marriage, cut tragically short, though it was destined to be, was a very happy one. Though they had no children of their own, Minerva's nieces and nephews, children of her brothers Malcolm and Robert, were frequent visitors to their home. This was a period of great fulfillment for Minerva. The accidental death of Elphinstone from a venomous tentacula bite 3 years into their marriage was an enormous sorrow to all who knew the couple. Minerva could not bear to remain alone in their cottage, but packed her things after Elphinstone's funeral and returned to her sparse stone-floored bedroom in Hogwarts Castle, accessible through a concealed door in the wall of her first-floor study. Always a very brave and private person, she poured all of her energies into her work, and few people, excepting perhaps Albus Dumbledore, ever realized how much she suffered. How long have I been recording? Only 16 minutes, wow! Second Wizarding War. By the time of the Second Wizarding War, Minerva was no longer prepared to act as a spy for a ministry she believed had become corrupt and dangerous. Her attitude was undoubtedly hardened by the intrusion at Hogwarts by Dolores Jane Umbridge, a ministry inspector and defense against the dark arts teacher, with whom Minerva clashed more violently than with any other colleague in her long and varied career. Following the confrontation with the Death Eaters who had invaded Hogwarts at the time of Albus Dumbledore's death, Minerva became a fully fledged member of the Order of the Phoenix, which was now, more than ever, seen as an outlaw organization. Following the promotion of Severus Snape to headmaster after her temporary stewardship at the school, Minerva McGonagall remained in post to protect the students as best she could from the malicious attention of the Carrows, the Death Eater teachers imposed upon the school by Lord Voldemort. In spite of her well-known loyalty to Professor Dumbledore, Voldemort and his followers believed that Minerva was both too gifted to lose and too sensible not to join them fully once their victory was assured. In this, however, they were quite mistaken, and Minerva McGonagall's actions during the famous Battle of Hogwarts proved that her allegiance to the Order of the Phoenix had never wavered. She was one of the last to duel Voldemort before his death, an encounter she survived, and she subsequently became a successful and inspirational headmistress of the school she had served so long and well. Minerva McGonagall was later awarded the Order of Merlin First Class by the new Minister for Magic, Kingsley Shacklebolt, and shortly afterward appeared on a card in the Chocolate Frog Famous Witch and Wizard series, an accolade she admitted she had never imagined receiving. Relationship with Harry Potter. Minerva McGonagall was not immune to a secret amusement at the antics of rule breakers. Nevertheless, she frequently questioned Dumbledore's policy of allowing Harry to run extreme risks, and banned many school rules during his adolescence, often showing herself to be more protective of Harry than the then headmaster. Harry had a claim on Minerva's affections, not only because he was the son of two of her all-time favorite students, but because he, like herself, had suffered serious bereavements. Although she neither spoiled nor favored Harry when he was her student, she revealed the depth of her trust in him during the Battle of Hogwarts, at which time she supported him unequivocally, even though she had never been fully in his or Dumbledore's confidence. Following a private conversation with Harry, Minerva McGonagall later took the controversial decision to add a portrait of Severus Snape to the gallery of old headmasters and headmistresses in her tower office. Ooh, J.K. Rowling's thoughts. Minerva was the Roman goddess of warriors and wisdom. William McGonagall is celebrated as the worst poet in British history. There was something irresistible to me about his name, and the idea that such a brilliant woman might be a distant relative of the buffoonish McGonagall. A small sample of his work will give a flavor of its unintentional comedic value. The following was written as part of a poem commemorating a Victorian railway disaster. Beautiful railway bridge of the Sevres Tay. Alas, I am very sorry to say that 90 lives have been taken away on the last Sabbath day of 1879, which will be remembered for a very long time. Wow! Okay. The first time we meet Professor McGonagall, she's at the corner of Privet Drive in the form of a tabby cat reading a map. It's only when Dumbledore arrives that she transfigures back into her human form. This rare ability to switch between feline and human forms makes McGonagall an animagus. Exactly how arduous and particular is this type of magic? Let's find out. Ooh, animagus! Yes! Or maybe it was in this book. I don't know. It's in one of the books. An animagus is a witch or wizard who can transform at will into an animal. While in their animal form, they retain most of their ability to think as a human, their own sense of identity, and their memories. They will also retain normal human life expectancy even if they take their animal form for long periods of time. However, feelings and emotions are simplified and they will have many animal desires, feeding off whatever their animal body craves rather than demanding human food. So, one question is, what happens if they end up having sex in their animal forms? Will that produce animal children, possibly? Or are they infertile? I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. It is immensely difficult to change oneself into an animagus, and the process, which is complex and time-consuming, can go dramatically wrong. As a result, it is believed that fewer than 1 in 1,000 witches or wizards are animagi. Animagi, whatever, an animagus has a great potential advantage in the sphere of espionage and crimes. For this reason, an animagus registry exists on which all animagi are expected to log their personal details and the precise appearance of their transformed self. It is usually the case that distinctive markings or disabilities belonging to the human body will transfer to the animal self. Failure to enter oneself onto the registry may result in a stretch in Azkaban. Ooh. So, Harry's father and the others, they kind of risk that big time. When the process of becoming an animagus goes wrong, it often goes seriously wrong. Impatience with the long and complicated process is generally at the root of such disasters, which usually take the form of horrible half-human, half-animal mutations. There is no known cure for such mistakes, and those who make them are often forced to live out their days in their pitiable condition, being unable to become fully animal or fully human. Talent in both transfiguration and potions is necessary to become an animagus. No responsibility can be taken for any physical or mental problems resulting from following these instructions. And we actually get the instructions on how to become an animagus. Thank goodness this isn't real. Because that must be freaking terrifying to try and do and fail. 1. For the space of 1 entire month, from full moon to full moon, a single leaf from a mandrake must be carried constantly in the mouth. The leaf must not be swallowed or taken out of the mouth at any point. If the leaf is removed from the mouth, the process must be started again. Remove the leaf at the full moon and place it steeped in your saliva in a small crystal phial that receives the pure rays of the moon. If the night is cloudy, you will have to find a new mandrake leaf and begin the whole process again. Oh, great. To the moonstruck crystal phial, add 1 of your own hairs, a silver teaspoon of dew collected from a place that neither sunlight nor human feet have touched for a full 7 days, and the chrysalis of a death's head hawk moth. Put this mixture in a quiet dark place and do not look at it or otherwise disturb it until the next electrical storm. While waiting for the storm, the following procedure should be followed at sunrise and sundown. The tip of the wand should be placed over the heart, and the following incantation spoken. Amato, Animo, Animato, Animagus. The wait for a storm may take weeks, months, or even years. During this time, the crystal phial should remain completely undisturbed and untouched by sunlight. Contamination by sunlight gives rise to the worst mutations. Resist the temptation to look at your potion until lightning occurs. If you continue to repeat your incantation at sunrise and sunset, there will come a time when with the touch of the wand tip to the chest, a second heartbeat may be sensed. Sometimes more powerful than the first, and sometimes less so. Nothing should be changed. The incantation should be uttered without fail at the correct time, never omitting a single occasion. Immediately upon the appearance of lightning in the sky, proceed directly to the place where your crystal phial is hidden. If you have followed all the preceding steps correctly, you will discover a mouthful of blood-red potion inside it. It is essential to move at once to a large, secure place where your transformation cannot cause alarm or place you in physical danger. Place your wand tip against your heart, speak the incantation, Amato, Animo, Animato, Animagus, and then drink the potion. If all has gone correctly, you will feel a fiery pain and an intense double heartbeat. Into your mind will come the shape of the creature to which you are shortly to transform. You must show no fear. It is too late now to escape the change you have willed. The first transformation is usually uncomfortable and frightening. Clothing and items such as glasses or jewelry mold to the skin and become one with fur, scales, or spikes. Do not resist and do not panic, or the animal mind may gain the ascendancy and you could do something foolish, such as try to escape through a window or charge a wall. When your transformation is complete, you should find yourself physically comfortable. You are strongly advised to pick up your wand at once and hide it in a place of safekeeping where you will be able to find it when you regain a human form. To return to a human form, visualize your human self as clearly as you can. This should be sufficient, but do not panic if the transformation does not occur immediately. Dang it. God dang it. With practice, you will be able to slip in and out of your animal form at will, simply by visualizing the creature. Advanced animagi can transform without wands. Generally, wizards prefer to have their clothes transfigured with them to escape the embarrassment of reappearing naked. However, it is possible to leave clothes behind if one wishes to give the impression of having gone to a bath or something similar. The longer a witch or wizard has been an animagus, the better they will become at choosing the precise form of their transformation. The animal into which one turns. If an animagus seems always to be that witch becomes the Patronus. What? Oh, okay, the animal that they become ends up being the Patronus. Okay. There is no known instance of the animagus form changing to match the Patronus if the latter changes. But the animagus who can also produce a Patronus is highly unusual, and no study has ever been done on sufficient numbers to draw this from conclusions. Remus Lupin. Do I need to continue? Yes, let's continue. Only 72 pages. Okay. Chapter 2, Remus Lupin. Being an animagus is a privilege, one that requires immense skill and hard work. Being a werewolf, on the other hand, is something that happens to witches and wizards against their will. The life of a werewolf can be torturous and often lonely, as we learn from Remus Lupin. Find out about Lupin's childhood, his love for Nymphadora Tonks, and the day he was bitten by Fenrir Greyback, and discover why writing his biography saddened J.K. Rowling all over again. I think it saddened us all when we found out that Lupin dies in the last book. It sucks. For those of you who didn't know that, sorry! Spoilers! I should have put that spoiler thing at the very beginning, but whatever. You should know that by now. Remus Lupin by J.K. Rowling. Birth date, March 10th. Wand, cypress and unicorn hair, 10 1/4 inches, pliable. Hogwarts House, Gryffindor. Special abilities, exceptionally gifted in defense against the dark arts, werewolf. Patronus, wolf. Parentage, wizard father, muggle mother. Family, wife, Nymphadora Tonks, son, Edward Remus, Teddy Lupin, sorry. Parents, Remus Lupin was the only child of the wizard Lyle Lupin and his muggle wife, Hope Howell. Lyle Lupin was a very clever, rather shy young man who, by the time he was 30, had become a world-renowned authority on non-human spirituous apparitions. These included poltergeists, boggarts, and other strange creatures that, while sometimes ghost-like in appearance and behavior, have never been truly alive, and remain something of a mystery even to the wizarding world. On an investigative trip into a dense Welsh forest in which a particularly vicious boggart was supposed to be lurking, Lyle ran across his future wife, Hope Howell, a beautiful muggle girl who worked in an insurance office in Cardiff, had taken an ill-advised walk through what she believed to be innocent woodland. Boggarts and poltergeists may be sensed by muggles, and Hope, a particularly imaginative and sensitive person, had become convinced that something was watching her from between the trees. Eventually, her imagination became so overactive that the boggart assumed a form that of a large, evil-looking man, bearing down on her with a snarl and outstretched hands in the gloom. Hearing her scream, young Lyle came sprinting through the trees, causing the apparition to shrink into a field mushroom with one wave of his wand. The terrified Hope thought in her confusion that he had driven her would-be attacker away, and his first words to her, "It's all right, it was only a boggart," made no impression on her. Noticing how very beautiful she was, Lyle made the wise decision not to talk about boggarts anymore, but instead agreed that the man had been very big and scary, and that the only sensible thing to do was for him to accompany Hope home to protect her. Dang it. The young couple fell in love, and not even Lyle's shamefaced admission some months later that Hope had never really been in danger dented her enthusiasm for him. To Lyle's delight, Hope accepted his proposal of marriage and threw herself enthusiastically into preparations for the wedding, complete with a boggart-topped cake. What would that look like? I want to know. Let me know. Lyle and Hope's first and only child, Remus John, was born after a year of marriage. A happy, healthy little boy, he showed early signs of magic, and both parents imagined that he would follow in his father's footsteps, attending Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry in due course. Bitten. By the time that Remus was 4 years old, the amount of dark magical activity across the country was increasing steadily. While few yet knew what lay behind the mounting attacks and sightings, Lord Voldemort's first ascent to power was in progress, and Death Eaters were recruiting all kinds of dark creatures to join them in their quest to overthrow the Ministry of Magic. The Ministry called in the services of authorities on dark creatures, even those as minor as boggarts and poltergeists, to help it understand and contain the threat. Lyle Lupin was among those asked to join the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures, which he did gladly. It was here that Lyle came face to face with a werewolf called Fenrir Greyback, who had been brought in for questioning about the death of 2 Muggle children. The werewolf registry was badly maintained. Werewolves were so shunned by wizarding society that they generally avoided contact with other people. They lived on self-described packs and did all they could to avoid being registered. Greyback, whom the ministry did not know to be a werewolf, claimed to be nothing more than a Muggle tramp, who was utterly amazed at finding himself in a room full of wizards and horrified by the talk about the poor dead children. Yeah, right. Greyback's filthy clothing and lack of wand were sufficient to persuade 2 overworked and ignorant members of the questioning committee that he was telling the truth. But Lyle Lupin was not so easily fooled. He recognized certain telltale signs in Greyback's appearance and behavior and told the committee that Greyback ought to be kept in detention until the next full moon, a mere 24 hours later. Greyback sat in silence while Lyle was laughed at by his fellow committee members. "Lyle, you just stick to Welsh boggarts, that's what you're good at." Lyle, generally a mild-mannered man, grew angry. He described werewolves as soulless evil, deserving nothing but death. The committee ordered Lyle out of the room, the head of the committee apologized to the Muggle tramp, and Greyback was released. Oh, God. That was not a good idea, dude. Now you've just secured your own death warrant. The wizard who escorted Greyback out of the inquiry was intending to place a memory charming upon him so that he would forget having been inside the ministry. Before he had the chance to do so, he was overpowered by Greyback and 2 accomplices who had been lurking at the entrance, and the 3 werewolves fled. Greyback lost no time in sharing with his friends how Lyle Lupin had just described him. It's not good. Their revenge on the wizard who thought that werewolves deserved nothing but death would be swift and terrible. Shortly before Remus Lupin's 5th birthday, as he slept peacefully in his bed, Fenrir Greyback forced open the boy's window and attacked him. Lyle reached the bedroom in time to save his own son's life, driving Greyback out of the house with a number of powerful curses. However, henceforth, Remus would be a fully fledged werewolf. Lyle Lupin never forgave himself for the words he had spoken in front of Greyback at the inquiry. Soulless evil, deserving nothing but death. He had parroted what was the common view of werewolves in his community, but his son was what he had always been, lovable and clever, except for that terrible period at the full moon when he suffered an excruciating transformation and became a danger to everyone around him. For many years, Lyle kept the truth about the attack, including the identity of the attacker, from his son, fearing Remus's recriminations. Childhood. Lyle did all he could to find a cure, but neither potions nor spells could help his son. From this time onward, the family's lives were dominated by the need to hide Remus's condition. They uprooted themselves from village to town, leaving the instant that rumors of the boy's odd behavior started. Fellow witches and wizards noticed how peaky Remus became as new moon approached, not to mention his monthly disappearances. Remus was not allowed to play with other children in case he let slip the truth of his condition. In consequence, and in spite of his loving parents, he was a very lonely boy. While Remus was small, his containment during his transformation was not difficult. A locked room and plenty of silencing spells usually sufficed. However, as he grew, so did his wolfish self, and by the time he was 10 years old, he was capable of pounding down doors and smashing windows. Even more powerful spells were needed to contain him, and both Hope and Lyle grew thin with worry and fear. They adored their son, but they knew that their community, already beset with fears at the mounting dark attack activity around them, would not be lenient on an uncontrolled werewolf. The hopes that they had once before for their son seemed in ruins, and Lyle educated Remus at home, certain that he would never be able to set foot in school. Shortly before Remus's 11th birthday, no less a person than Albus Dumbledore, headmaster of Hogwarts, arrived uninvited on the Lupin's doorstep. Flustered and frightened, Lyle and Hope tried to block his entrance, but somehow, 5 minutes later, Dumbledore was sitting at the fireplace eating crumpets and playing gobstones with Remus. Dumbledore explained to the Lupins that he knew what had happened to their son. Greyback had boasted of what he had done, and Dumbledore had spies among dark creatures. However, Dumbledore told the Lupins that he saw no reason why Remus could not come to school, and described the arrangements that he had been made to give the boy a safe and secure place for his transformation. Due to the widespread prejudice around werewolves, Dumbledore agreed that, for Remus's own sake, his condition should not be broadcast. Once a month, he would leave for a secure and comfortable house in the village of Hogsmeade, guarded by many spells and reached only by an underground passage from the Hogwarts grounds where he could transform in peace. Remus's excitement was beyond anything he had known before. It was a dream of his life to meet other children and have, for the first time, friends and playmates. School. Sorted into Gryffindor House, Remus Lupin was swiftly befriended by 2 cheerful, confident, and rebellious boys, James Potter and Sirius Black. They were attracted by Remus's quiet sense of humor and a kindness that they valued, even if they did not always possess it themselves. Remus, always the underdog's friend, was kind to short and rather slow Peter Pettigrew, a fellow Gryffindor whom James and Sirius might not have thought worthy of their attention without Remus's persuasion. Soon these 4 became inseparable. Remus functioned as the conscience of this group, but it was an occasional faulty conscience. He did not approve of their relentless bullying of Severus Snape, but he loved James and Sirius so much and was so grateful for their acceptance that he did not always stand up to them as much as he knew he should. Inevitably, his three best friends soon became curious as to why Remus had to vanish once a month. Convinced by his lowly childhood that his friends would desert him if they knew that he was a werewolf, Remus made up ever more elaborate lies to account for his absences. James and Sirius guessed the truth in their second year. To Remus's astonished gratitude, they not only remained his friends, but thought up an ingenious method of easing his monthly isolation. They also gave him a nickname that would follow him all throughout school, Moony. Remus finished his school career as a prefect. The Order of the Phoenix. By the time the four friends left school, Lord Voldemort's ascension was almost complete. True resistance to him was concentrated in the underground organization called the Order of the Phoenix, which all four young men joined. The death of James Potter, along with his wife Lily, at the hands of Lord Voldemort was one of the most traumatic events of Remus's already troubled life. His friends meant even more to him than to other people because he had long since accepted the fact that most people would treat him as untouchable and that there could be possibility of marrying and having children. Even worse, within 24 hours, he had also lost his two other best friends. Remus was in the north of the country on Order of the Phoenix business when he heard the horrible news that one of them had murdered the other and was now in Azkaban, a traitor to the Order and to Lily and James themselves. The downfall of Voldemort, such a source of jubilation to the rest of the wizarding world, marked the beginning of a long stretch of loneliness and unhappiness for Remus. He had lost his three close friends, and with the Order disbanded, his previous comrades returned to busy lives with families. His mother was now dead, and while Lyle, his father, was always delighted to see his son, Remus refused to endanger his father's peaceful existence by returning to live with him. Remus now lived a hand-to-mouth existence, taking jobs that were far below his level of ability, always knowing that he would have to leave them before his pattern of growing sick once a month at the full moon was noticed by his workmates. The Wolfsbane Potion. One development in the wizarding community gave Remus hope, the discovery of the Wolfsbane Potion. While this did not prevent a werewolf losing its human form once a month, it restricted his transformation to that of an ordinary and sleepy wolf. It had always been Remus's worst fear that he would kill while out of his right mind. However, the Wolfsbane Potion was complex and the ingredients very expensive. Remus had no chance to sample it without admitting what he was, and so he continued his lonely, itinerant existence. Return to Hogwarts. Once again, Albus Dumbledore changed the course of Remus Lupin's life when he tracked him down in a tumble-down, semi-derelict cottage in Yorkshire. Delighted to see the headmaster, Remus was amazed when Dumbledore offered him the post of Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. He was only persuaded to accept when Dumbledore explained that there would be a limitless supply of Wolfsbane Potion, courtesy of the potions master Severus Snape. At Hogwarts, Remus revealed himself to be a gifted teacher with a rare flair for his own subject and a profound understanding of his pupils. He was, as ever, particularly drawn to the underdog in both Neville Longbottom and Harry Potter, benefited from his wisdom and kindness. However, Remus's own flaw was at work. He had grown suspicious about one of his old friends, a known fugitive, but did not share them with anyone at Hogwarts. His desperate desire to belong and to be liked meant that he was neither as brave nor as honest as he ought to have been. An unfortunate combination of circumstances arose that resulted in Remus undergoing a true werewolf transformation on the grounds of the school. Severus Snape's resentment, never abated by Remus' subsequent respectful politeness, made sure that it was widely known what the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher was. Remus felt obligated to resign and departed Hogwarts once again. Marriage. As Lord Voldemort once again gained ascendancy, the old resistance regrouped, and Remus found himself once more part of the Order of the Phoenix. This time, the group included an Auror who had been too young to belong to the Order during the first incarnation. Clever, brave, and funny, pink-haired Nymphadora Tonks was a protege of Alistair's Mad-Eye Moody, the toughest and most grizzled Auror of them all. Remus, so often melancholy and lonely, was first amused, then impressed, and then seriously smitten by the young witch. He had never fallen in love before. If it had happened in peacetime, Remus would have simply taken himself off to a new place and a new job, so that he did not have to endure the pain of watching Tonks fall in love with a handsome young wizard in the Auror office, which was what he expected to happen. However, this was war. They were both needed in the Order of the Phoenix, and nobody knew what the next day would bring. Remus felt justified in remaining exactly where he was, keeping his feelings to himself, but secretly rejoicing every time somebody paired him with Tonks on some overnight mission. It had never occurred to Remus that Tonks could return his feelings because he had become so used to considering himself unclean and unworthy. One night when they lay in hiding outside a known Death Eater's house, after a year of increasingly warm friendship, Tonks made an idle remark about one of their fellow Order members. "He's still handsome, isn't he, even after Azkaban?" Before he could stop himself, Remus had replied bitterly that he supposed she had fallen for his old friend. He always got the women. At this, Tonks became suddenly angry. You'd know perfectly well who I'd fallen for if you weren't too busy feeling sorry for yourself to notice. So essentially he's telling you, I love you, not this guy. Remus's immediate response was a happiness he had never experienced in his life, but this was extinguished almost at once by his sense of crushing duty. He had always known that he could not marry and run the risk of passing on his painful, shameful condition. You can pass on being a werewolf? That could be something your kids could get? Really? Is that possible? Because you can only become a werewolf when you're bitten by one. So, as long as Remus doesn't bite him, his son should have been fine, right? He therefore pretended not to understand Tonks, which did not fool her at all. Wiser than Remus, she was sure that he loved her, but that he was refusing to admit it out of mistaken nobility. However, he avoided any further excursions with her, barely talked to her, and started volunteering for the most dangerous missions. Tonks became desperately unhappy, convinced not only that the man she loved would never willingly spend time with her again, but also that he might walk to his death rather than admit his feelings. Remus and Tonks both fought Lord Voldemort and his Death Eaters in the Department of Mysteries, a battle that resulted in the public exposure of Voldemort's return. The loss of the last of his school friends during this battle did nothing to soften Remus's increasingly self-destructive attitude. Tonks could only watch in despair as he volunteered to spy for the Order, leaving to live among fellow werewolves to try and persuade them to Dumbledore's side. In doing this, he was exposing himself to the possible reprisals of the werewolf who had changed his life forever, Fenrir Greyback. Remus came face to face with both Greyback and Tonks at Hogwarts barely a year later when the Order clashed with the Death Eaters within the castle. During this battle, Remus lost yet another person he had loved, Albus Dumbledore. Dumbledore had been adored by every member of the Order of the Phoenix, but to Remus he had represented the sort of kindness, tolerance, and understanding that he had received from nobody in the world outside his parents and his three best friends, and had been the only man ever to offer him a position within normal wizarding society. In the aftermath of the bloody fight, inspired by Fleur Delacour's protestation of enduring love for Bill Weasley, who had been savaged by Greyback, Tonks made a brave public declaration of her feelings for Remus, who was forced to admit the strength of his love for her. In spite of continuing misgivings that he was acting selfishly, Remus married Tonks quietly in the north of Scotland, with witnesses taken from the local wizarding tavern. He continued to fear that the stigma attached to him would infect his wife and wished for no fanfare around their union. He swung constantly between elation that he was married to the woman of his dreams and terror of what he might have brought upon them both. Parenthood. Within a few weeks of their marriage, Remus realized that Tonks was pregnant, and every fear he had ever had resurfaced. He was convinced that he had passed on his condition to an innocent child, and that he had condemned Tonks to the same life as his mother, forever moving around, unable to settle, having to hide her increasingly violent child from sight. Full of remorse and self-reclamation, Remus fled, leaving the pregnant Tonks seeking out Harry and offering to accompany him on whatever death-defying adventure awaited. To Remus's shock and displeasure, the 17-year-old Harry not only declined his offer, but became angry and insulting. He told his ex-teacher that he was acting selfishly and irresponsibly. Remus responded with uncharacteristic violence and stormed out of the house, taking refuge in a corner of the leaky cauldron where he sat drinking and fuming. However, after a few hours of reflection, Remus was forced to accept that his ex-pupil had just taught him a valuable lesson. James and Lily, Remus reflected, had stuck with Harry even unto their own deaths. His own parents, Lyle and Hope, had sacrificed their peace and security to keep the family together. Bitterly ashamed, Remus left the inn and returned to his wife, where he begged her forgiveness and assured her that, come what may, he would never leave her again. For the rest of Tonks' pregnancy, Remus eschewed missions for the Order of the Phoenix and made it his first priority to protect his wife and unborn child. Lupin's son, Edward Remus, Teddy, was named for Remus's recently deceased father-in-law. To both parents' relief and delight, he showed no signs of lycanthropy when born, but inherited his mother's ability to change his appearance at will. On the night of Teddy's birth, Remus briefly left Tonks and his son in the charge of his mother-in-law so that he could go and find Harry for the first time since their angry confrontation. Here he asked Harry to be Teddy's godfather, feeling nothing but forgiveness and gratitude toward the person who had sent him home to the family that gave him his greatest happiness. Oh, his death. Oh. Both Remus and Tonks returned to Hogwarts for the final battle against Voldemort, leaving their tiny son in the care of his grandmother. The couple knew that if Voldemort won this battle, their family was sure to be eliminated. Both were notorious members of the Order of the Phoenix. Tonks was a marked woman in the eyes of her Death Eater aunt, Bellatrix Lestrange, and their son was the very antithesis of a pureblood, having many Muggle relatives and a dash of werewolf. Having survived numerous encounters with Death Eaters and fought his way skillfully and bravely out of many tight corners, Remus Lupin met his end at the hands of Antonius Dolohov, one of the longest-serving, most devoted and sadistic of all of Voldemort's Death Eaters. Remus was no longer in prime fighting condition when he rushed in to join the fight. Months of inactivity, using mostly spells of concealment and protection, had blunted his dueling capabilities, and when he ran up against a dueler of Dolokhof's skill, now battle-hardened after months of killing and marrying, his reactions were too slow. Remus Lupin was posthumanely awarded the Order of Merlin First Class, the first werewolf ever to be accorded this honor. The example of his life and death did much to lift the stigma on werewolves. He was never forgotten by anyone who knew him, a brave, kind man who did the best he could in very difficult circumstances and who helped many more than he ever realized. Oh, J.K. Rowling's thoughts. Remus Lupin was one of my favorite characters in the entire Potter series. I made myself cry all over again while writing this entry because I hated killing him. Lupin's condition of lycanthropy, being a werewolf, was a metaphor for those illnesses that carry a stigma like HIV and AIDS. All kinds of superstitions seem to surround blood-borne conditions, probably due to taboos surrounding blood itself. The wizarding community is as prone to hysteria and prejudice as the Muggle one, and the character of Lupin gave me a chance to examine those attitudes. Remus's Patronus was never revealed in the Potter books, even though it is he who teaches Harry the difficult and unusual art of producing one. It is in fact a wolf, an ordinary wolf, not a werewolf. Wolves are family-oriented and non-aggressive, but Remus dislikes the form of his Patronus, which is a constant reminder of his affliction. Everything wolfish disgusts him, and he often produces a non-corporeal Patronus deliberately, especially when others are watching. Lycanthropy doesn't make for an easy life. In this next piece of writing on werewolves, we learn why it's been so difficult for Remus and his kind to integrate in the rest of society. 46 minutes. I am almost done. 22 more pages. I'm gonna have to stop. I'm gonna have to... Do I stop? I'm gonna have to keep going, and then I'll stop and upload it tomorrow. Werewolves by J.K. Rowling. There are werewolves worldwide, and they have traditionally been pariahs in the wizarding community from which they often spring. Witches and wizards who are frequently involved in hunting or studying such creatures are exposed to a higher risk of attack than the average Muggle. In the late 19th century, the great English authority on werewolves, Professor Marlowe Forfang, undertook the first comprehensive study of their habits. He found that nearly all those he managed to study and question had been wizards before being bitten. He also learned from the werewolves that Muggles taste different to wizards and that they are much more likely to die of their wounds, whereas witches and wizards survive to become werewolves. The Ministry of Magic's policies on werewolves have always been muddled and inefficient. A werewolf code of conduct was developed in 1637, which werewolves were supposed to sign, promising not to attack anyone but to lock themselves up securely each month. Unsurprisingly, nobody signed the code, as nobody was prepared to walk into the Ministry and admit to being a werewolf, a problem from which the later Werewolf Registry also suffered. For years, this Werewolf Registry, on which every werewolf was supposed to enter their name and personal details, has remained incomplete and unreliable because so many of the newly bitten sought to conceal their condition and escape the inevitable shame and exile. Well, it's not their fault. Werewolves have been shunted between the Beast and Being Division of the Department for Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures for years, because nobody can make up their minds whether a werewolf should be classified as human or bestial. At one point, the Werewolf Registry and Werewolf Capture Unit were both in the Beast Division, while at the same time an Office for Werewolf Support Services was established in the Being Division. Nobody ever presented themselves for support services for the same reason that very few ever signed the registry, and it was eventually closed down. To become a werewolf, it was necessary to be bitten by a werewolf in their wolfish form at the time of the full moon. When the werewolf's saliva mingles with the victim's blood, contamination will occur. The many Muggle myths and legends surrounding werewolves are, in the main, false. Although some contain some nuggets of truth, silver bullets do not kill werewolves, but a mixture of powdered silver and dittany applied to a fresh bite will seal the wound and prevent the victim bleeding to death. Although tragic tales are told of victims who beg to be allowed to die rather than live on as werewolves. In the second half of the 20th century, several potions were devised to soften the effects of lycanthropy. The most successful was the Wolfsbane potion. The monthly transformation of a werewolf is extremely painful if untreated and is usually preceded and succeeded by a few days of pallor and ill health. While in his or her wolfish form, the werewolf loses entirely its human sense of right or wrong. However, it is incorrect to state, as some authorities have, notably Professor Emerit Picardi in his book Lupin Lawlessness, Why Lycanthropes Don't Deserve to Live, is that they suffer from a permanent loss of moral sense. While human, the werewolf may be as good or kind as the next person. Alternatively, they may be dangerous even while human, as in the case of Fenrir Greyback, who attempts to bite and maim as a man and keeps his nails sharpened into claws like points for the purpose. If attacked by a werewolf that is still in human form, the victim may develop certain mild wolfish characteristics such as a fondness for rare meat, which is probably what happened to Bill. He got attacked in his Fenrir's human form, but otherwise should not be troubled by long-term ill effects. However, any bite or scratches given by a werewolf will leave lasting scars, whether or not he or she was in a wolf form at the time of the attack. While in its animal form, the werewolf is almost indistinguishable in appearance from the true wolf, although the snout may be slightly shorter and the pupils smaller, in both cases more human, and the tail tufted rather than full and bushy. The real difference is in its behavior. Genuine wolves are not very aggressive, and the vast number of folk tales representing them as mindless predators are now believed by wizarding authorities to refer to werewolves, not true wolves. A wolf is unlikely to attack a human except under exceptional circumstances. The werewolf, however, targets humans almost exclusively and poses very little danger to any other creature. Werewolves generally reproduce by attacking non-werewolves. The stigma surrounding the werewolves has been so extreme for centuries that very few have married and had children. However, when werewolves have married human partners, there has been no sign of their lycanthropy being passed on to their offspring. That's what I thought. One curious feature of the condition is that if two werewolves meet and mate at the full moon, a highly unlikely contingency, which is known to have occurred only twice, the result of the mating will be wolf cubs which resemble true wolves in everything except their abnormally high intelligence. They are not more aggressive than normal wolves and do not single out humans for attack. Such a litter was once set free, under conditions of extreme secrecy in the Forbidden Forest at Hogwarts, with the kind permission of Albus Dumbledore. The cubs grew into beautiful and usually intelligent wolves, and some of them live there still, which has given rise to stories about werewolves in the forest. Stories none of the teachers or the gamekeeper has done much to dispel because keeping students out of the forest is, in their view, highly desirable. Oh boy. Dang it, Okay, I think I'm going to have to end this off here, guys. I will see you all in the next one, which will be finishing up this one and probably starting the other one, or the next one.